Hi all. I had an interesting game on Monday night against John Caves, who is, by the way, 82 years old. So I think one of my oldest opponents this year in the leagues I play in. I'm going to call this instructive game to break or not to break. I don't know if you know Shakespeare, but one of the most famous Shakespeare quotations is to be or not to be. And it carries on, that is the question, whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die to sleep no more, and by a sleep we say, end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to, 'tis a consummation, devoutly to be wished, to die to sleep. Now in chess, we sometimes have the opportunity to do a pawn break or not to do a pawn break. We can delay it. And when you do a pawn break, you're radically changing the position. So you're often, you're changing the tensions in the position. And I suppose it is like taking arms against the opponent when you do a pawn break. So when to do it is of crucial importance. And I think a lot of that is to do with calculation. And in this game, I was playing white, I played knight f3. There was an opportunity for an early pawn break with e5, as you'll see. But I was trying to balance in my mind this concept that preparing punches, I think I've been influenced by some of the games of Tarash, that if you're going to do a pawn break, it's nice to have your pieces in an optimal place before a pawn structure change occurs. So here he played b6, bishop g2, bishop e7, and you'll notice already this bishop's a potential liability because it's eyeing this bishop. So if there is a discovery later on, say knight g5, this is going to be a target. So bear that in mind. Castles, bishop e7, I played knight c3, so I'm just calmly developing pieces positioning. So d4. After the game in post-mortem, he said, by the way, he prefers gambit positions. He doesn't like this quiet stuff. He likes things like the Peruvian gambit, which I didn't even know about. Blackmer gambit and England gambit. He plays that sort of stuff, and he didn't really like this position. I kind of like these closed positions myself. So queen c2, and you'll notice the queen's eyeing h7. I know this is a bit crude, but it supports this idea of the discovered attack on this bishop on b7, gaining a tempo if h7 is vulnerable. And we'll see that h7 does become vulnerable, because after e4 I've got a constant threat now of e5. But here is the instructive thing about the video, to break or not to break, when to play e5. So he plays rook c8 rather provocatively. Now if he plays something like c5, then problem solved for me. I can play d5 with good conscience, because he's lost access to the c5 for his knight, and that'll be fine. So say e5, I'll just continue like this, h3, and then peel open the f file with a later f4, knowing that black hasn't got too much counterplay, or it won't be that quick on the queen side. But he refused to play c5. He played rook c8. So the question here is, he's tempting me for e5. Now in this position, it might be okay to play e5. So let's see, I played h3, but and after a6, b3. But if we look at the first time where e5 is possible here, in this position, actually I should have made a note of this earlier. I'm going to stick Ribka on here. I did store some notes before about when to play e5. In this position, the prepare punch theory, the pieces are not fully developed. The rooks are not connected yet. And especially if there was a rook on the d file, then e5 you would see visibly. It would be more effective because the black pieces would be tied up with simply getting a rook to d1 later. But the question is e5, this break, good here? So let's ask that now. So rook c8, I think e5 is not good here. In fact, black will be better. D takes. And now just knight g4. Let's just quickly examine this discovery attack. So knight g5, threatening queen h7 mate. black just plays bishop takes g5. And here, if bishop takes b7, rook b8, the problem is e5 is really loose. So that's what makes this not so good. If bishop e4, black can take on c1. And now knight takes ge5. Now this continuation is apparently, it's nearly about equal. And that's only if like bishop e4 was found. I don't know if I'd even find that. So playing precisely after e5 is still equality. So at the moment, preparing the punch theory is good for the timing of e5. So I played the quiet h3, fine. White's advantage is still about 0.40 theoretically. a6. Now here, after a6, because I've deprived knight g4, this is more attractive now to play e5. And in this position, apparently, that would give white a good advantage. So that one little subtle change, depriving knight for knight g4. Again, this discovery against this bishop with this e5 break gives white advantage here, apparently. Because if we look at this now, if here bishop takes f3, which he mentioned after the game, just ef, that's winning a piece. Because bishop g2 just takes. So he can't play bishop takes f3, just in case you're wondering. If he plays in this position, d takes e5, then d takes e5. Now say the knight moves back to e8. Now, are we working on this discovery assumption or something else? In fact, Rybka's giving like rook e1, but let's assume this: knight g5, bishop takes b7. Apparently there's a small advantage for white here, but it's no big deal again. So that's quite interesting, you know, that there's no real big deal here. If this is the continuation, say, with knight takes e5. The key thing is e5 is dropping off. So black losing the flank pawn h7 is not such a big problem here. Black's got a reasonable position here. Although it's still a small advantage for white. So let's go back. So I prepared my punch with b3 still. So b3. Punch is a metaphor. I don't really... not in an aggressive sense, just trying to play chess logically. so bishop a8, bishop b2. So the rooks are now connected. So now you know the pawn breaks in the centre are more tempting, especially if the one rook can come to d1. I thought so. One rook did come to d1. In this position again, e5 is very tempting anyway. But rook d1, rook a8. And here, e5 is much better than before. So he's really just swinging his rook, provoking me to do something. And I refused, in principle. I just thought I'd carry on preparing, you know, get the other rook to e1 if he's not going to do anything. I was really waiting for this c5 to lock up the position, which never happened.